After 85 days of riding on the coattails of simply not being Joe Biden, I'm here to declare that the joy and the vibes of the Kamala campaign are officially dead and buried. Rest in peace, joy. Rest in peace, vibes. Rest in peace, false sense of excitement that Kamala is at the top of your ticket. Even the Democrats can't fake it anymore. They hate her. They always have, though. This is nothing new. This is a familiar feeling. Remember, she didn't even make it to 2020 before she was forced to drop out in December of 2019. The Democratic Party doesn't like or want Kamala. They were stuck with her when Joe's brain went kaput. And after last week's media tour, after voters got to know her a little better, well, it's looking even worse for her. And when Barry starts panicking, oh, you know it's bad.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
Oh, shaming black men into voting based on skin color alone is not a new thing. But this election, it's not going to work because it takes a lot of privilege to vote based on identity politics, and things are too crappy for that kind of a luxury. And nobody likes Kamala, and it's not because she's a woman, and it's not because she's black. It's because she is a stone-cold moron.
So when we think about what's at stake in this election, whoa, it's packed with some stuff. It's packed with some fundamental stuff. I say rather articulately.
In fact, she's such an idiot, she actually makes Joe Biden look halfway decent. And he hates her too, by the way. I think that was made pretty obvious last week when he praised Governor DeSantis and basically dunked on Kamala. And we'll never know for sure, but I'd say there is a decent chance that Joe Biden votes for Donald Trump. But I gotta hand it to Kamala. She managed to find the one person even dumber than her. You know, if that display is supposed to win over male voters, I mean, best of luck to ya. Joining me now with his thoughts on it all is Breitbart Editor-in-Chief Alex Marlow. Alex, you know, I feel pretty confident in saying things are not going well for the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz campaign. I think they're getting pretty desperate. They're cosplaying masculinity at this point in quite pathetic fashion. How do you think it's going for them right now? And do you think those that work on that campaign are pretty frazzled at this point?
Yeah, I think it's absolute panic mode for the Harris team and the Tim Walz team. The Great Walls of China, for all the CCP connections. That's what I've been calling them lately. Yeah, they look completely lost because they tried this bunker approach, which was the correct approach because now we know what Kamala sounds like when she opens her mouth. And I'll tell you, Tommy, when I was researching Breaking Biden, which I know you were very helpful to me in promoting, as well as my observance of past Democrat presidents, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, et cetera, she's the only one in the group who really is a stone cold moron, as you said. And I don't say that as an attack and a pejorative. Yeah, it's fun to say, but that's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying because it's true. She's not a particularly bright person. She failed the bar. She only got into law school because she used some sort of affirmative action program. We don't know what her records were as a student. We know that she has used connections, yes, including her connections to powerful men, to get to where she is. And she is not fleet of foot. She's not good on her feet. She doesn't have great ideas. It's just a fact. She's not that great. She's not a good candidate. She was never a good candidate. The Democrat establishment doesn't get this, but the people do. The people have never been excited about her. The people have never wanted Kamala Harris. That's why she got no delegates in 2020. So it's pretty fun to watch, I got to admit, because they have nothing they can do. They have to keep putting her out there and watching her fumble around because they can't put her back in the penalty box at this point, can they?
I think that they might try, although I am happy to hear that she will be sitting down with Bret Baier on Wednesday afternoon, evening. And oh boy, I cannot wait for that one. I'm sure it's going to be one of the most difficult interviews of her lifetime, and I hope she doesn't back out because I can't wait to see it. But I'm going to tell you, I think the Democrat establishment knows that Kamala is a moron. I think they've always known it. I think that they were saddled with her. They didn't really have any other option. Yeah. It was too late in the game. It's like, damn, we've got this person here It's a warm body. Joe's a half warm body. Like, what are we going to do here? And it's like, well, I guess we're just going to have to do our best to put lipstick on a pig and hope we can get Kamala through this. And I think they really were hoping they could run the clock. It's like, we just got to get her through a few months. Like, if we can just get her there, we can make people excited that she's alive and breathing, then maybe we can get there. We can make sure that we're ballot harvesting. We can make sure we're getting out the vote, and that might make up for how much of a moron Kamala is. But I'll tell you what, last week was bad for Kamala. I mean, not only was it completely and entirely tone deaf to do all these stupid shows in the midst of the aftermath of Helene, and then when Hurricane Milton was ready to crash into the shores, it just looked bad from just a PR perspective. And then you actually heard her talk, and it was even worse. And she's brought back the laugh. And I think that they tried to hide that laugh for a little while, and for a little while she was able to kind of mask it, but now it's out in full force again. She's laughing inappropriately. She's so uncomfortable in her own skin. And I just don't know what they can do to make up for that at this point. I think they all know that this is just not looking good. And Tim Walz is even worse, man.
Yeah, what's so interesting, Tommy, is that you see Joe Biden putting the shiv in her, because you know that he was in there, and if they had just rode with Joe Biden, then, and Biden lost, which he would have lost, he would have got blamed for everything. The whole debacle, every race that was lost, the election would have been blamed on Biden. Now Harris is going to get all that, and Obama's going to get a bunch of it. But Obama and Biden famously don't get along that great. Because Obama probably was the guy who orchestrated the coup, or at least finished it off to push Biden out and push Harris in. And look what they got. They got someone who has no business being anywhere in the vicinity of the Oval Office. It's frankly embarrassing that she's our vice president today. She's not competent to talk about any issue at a fluid level, not a single one. And all of her policies have been failures, and people are starting to understand it. And I hope enough people figure this out in the next 3 weeks.
I just don't know how anybody can look at Kamala or hear her talk and be like, yes, this woman has command of the issues, or command of anything, really. I mean, it's embarrassing. But I'll tell you, we also know what they're going to lean into, because it's their only hope at this point. And it's pretty much going to be full force on the abortion thing. And then the democracy is at stake. And remember January 6th. And, you know, I said this last week on Outnumbered on Fox News, but I think it takes a certain amount of privilege to talk about democracy and January 6th ad nauseum. I think that you have to have a lot of, luxury in your life to that be your primary focus, or something that you're willing to vote on. And then abortion, of course, they're rolling out the Hollywood celebrities. We saw, this clip I'm about to play for you, but Jennifer Garner being another one. Oh, she's so sexy when men say they're going to vote for Kamala. I mean, it's so embarrassing. But take a look at this abortion comment from Mr. Breaking Bad himself. And I want to know if you think this is going to be effective.
I am not a politician. I am not a doctor or a lawyer, but I've played all of those on television. But I am a father of a daughter, and it's important to me, for her life now and for the future, and other fathers' daughters, to be able to have within their lifetime the fundamental right of freedom of choice. There should not be anyone but them deciding what happens to their own body. And that's why I'm enthusiastically supporting Vice President Harris and Governor Walz.
Alex, I think this is so weird. I'm not downplaying the importance of abortion in this election, because it's going to be very important. But when I hear somebody say, as a dad, I'm really concerned about my daughter being able to have an abortion, that just seems weird to me.
Yeah, it's really, really weird that I declare that I will only support a candidate who wants my grandchildren, my flesh and blood, to be terminated in the womb. That's all that matters to me. I mean, it's kind of gross. It's also why, Tommy, I didn't stop having children until I had at least 2 daughters, so that I can cancel out idiots like Bryan Cranston. It's just amazing how these people have a gift of being able to act, and they feel like they need to just publicly humiliate himself. I mean, he can barely talk up there. And this guy had so much goodwill for all Americans of all political stripes. He's been on some of the most popular shows of all time. Everyone in Hollywood says he's a super nice guy. Tommy, that's where I live. We have some semi-mutual friends, and Everyone says he's a great guy. It's like, why is he doing this? Why is he just so embarrassing? But on a serious level, on a fundamental level, and that is important to talk about, this is an advantage Democrats have because they've been able to put abortion on the ballot in a couple of swing states. I'm looking at Nevada. I'm looking at New Mexico. There are a couple scenarios if that one Nebraska district flips and Trump doesn't run as straight on the Rust Belt, that one of those states could end up deciding the election. And the fact that abortion's on the ballot will get extra Democrats who don't like Harris to show up and vote. And that's a significant thing. Republicans should be aware that the Democrats are that organized that they tried to get abortion on the ballot in swing states. And that's why we can't underestimate their ability. She's raised $1 billion, and they've got that amazing get out the vote and what I call cheat by mail operation. And that's really what's running. It's not Harris. She's not running. She's an amalgam of the Obamas and the Reen Powell jobs and the Democrat establishment and all of those various universes that collaborate together. And they produced her. She's an AI. She's not real. Ignore Kamala Harris for the most part, unless you want to make fun of her. Look at stuff like that they got abortion on the ballot in order to make sure she picks up a couple of those tight swing states.
Yeah, I guess that's my concern too. And it's also a little bit of my frustration with the Republican Party as somebody who just really doesn't want this election to be decided by abortion. It's frustrating to me that some states that are controlled by Republicans or that lean Republican decided that they wanted to fight this fight to ban abortion. That bothers me because I'm like, if we lose an election because some of you, I understand it's important to you, but if we lose that election based on that issue in some of these states because you guys were beating the drum so hard on these abortion bans, that's going to really bother me because I don't think it does our country any good. And I don't think it does the cause any good if we keep losing. I mean, you can't do anything. I also want to go back to Tim Walz.
Yeah, no, but Tommy, you deserve some credit on this because you were early on saying that this is a political powder keg that you don't want to mess with. And I'm a pro-life person. And I'm happy that our federal government doesn't institutionalize the right for it to exist. But obviously, politically, it's been a huge problem for Republicans. And if Kamala's able to eke out this victory, then, there's obviously that's going to be a part of it. I think morality and politics don't always work together, particularly in this case. But I totally understand that the American public is not ready to talk about abortion bans right now. We're just not. I wish they were, but they're not. So that's just a fact.
Yeah, they're just not. That's just not the way that the public sentiment is going. So to me, it's frustrating that we could lose another election on that alone, because that's really the only area that they are definitively leading in. So it's like we're doing this to ourselves. Republicans do it to themselves. And I understand for some people, it's just such a moral issue that they just can't ignore it. And I don't want to discount or invalidate that. To me, though, it's just rather frustrating. I want to talk about Tim Walz a little bit, speaking of abortion and extremes. But Tim Walz, he might also be stupid. He might also be a moron. In fact, I'm leaning towards that, him being a moron. But he really gets tripped up on words, and that's something that he and Kamala have in common. But, when he said at that Gavin Newsom hosted fundraiser that he wanted to eliminate the Electoral College, I actually have to give Michael Strahan a little bit of credit for pressing him on it. And his answer, oh boy, let's take a look.
I want to go back to something you said on Tuesday. You said, I think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go. But the campaign came out later that night, and they said that's not their stance.
Yeah. Well, it's not the campaign's position. And the point I'm trying to make is that there's folks that feel every vote must count in every state. And I think some of folks feel that's not the case. Our campaign does that. And the point I'm saying is I'm in 5 states in 2 days. We're out there making the case that the campaign's position is clear, that that's not their position. Their position and my position is to make sure that everybody understands their vote, no matter what state they're in, matters.
So that's something that you and Vice President Harris disagree on?
I have spoken about it in the past, that she's been very clear on this, and the campaign, and my position is the campaign's position.
So the campaign's position, I said that wasn't my position, but the campaign position is my position, and they've been clear on it, but I just said I wanted to eliminate it, but their position is my position. I mean, I understand he's told us before he's a knucklehead. He's told us before that grammar isn't his thing, but he is also a walking disaster. And if that's our vice president and she's our president, shoot, I might be like one of those liberals that say I'm fleeing to another country.
Yeah, I got to say that made my brain hurt. He is another person who cannot go off teleprompter. It was really interesting to see his convention speech because it was terrific. It was perfect rhetorically. He delivered it well. He had great body language and enthusiasm, and he has not done well in a single one of these interviews. He did not do well in the debate. He looked incredibly uncomfortable the whole time. He's not doing well as vice president. And he never was, Tommy. He had a terrible background to begin with. He was radical. He was from a state that should theoretically be a deep blue state. Trump could conceivably win it, but it's a state that's gone Democrat longer than any other state in the union. It was a calamitous pick. I can't believe she made it. I was overjoyed at the time, and that emotion is definitely proven to be prescient.
So I've said throughout this process with her and Walz that, you know, you might be able to stomach one buffoon on the ticket because the other person might make you feel better, but you can't have two buffoons. Like, you just cannot. I don't think that there's anybody out there who is an independent voter who, you know, maybe doesn't have an extreme hatred for Donald Trump, because the people that have an extreme hatred for Donald Trump, I mean, they would vote for cadaver Biden. They just hate Trump. But the people out there that don't hate Trump deeply in their soul and they're still undecided, I think that they look at Kamala and I think they look at Tim Walz and they're like, you know what? I just can't vote for two idiots. And that's what you have there. And on the other side, for people that really hate Donald Trump, I think they see J.D. Vance, and especially in that VP debate, and, you know, he won me over. You know, I was concerned about him on that ticket. I thought that he was going to hurt Donald Trump with women. But at that debate, he performed so well. I think some of the people that are a little bit more nervous about Donald Trump, I think they see J.D. Vance as a calming force. And you just don't have that on the other side. But I want to play another clip for you, because the Kamala campaign really is trying to go this route of, oh, Trump is senile and he's weak and unstable, and so he must release his medical records. Let's take a look at this.
Speaker,
That's what people are going to vote on.
Just to be very clear, he hasn't released all of his medical records. He released 2 letters. Should he release the results of the cognitive
it's
test?
unnecessary. He's on display every minute.
So it's unnecessary. You concede that he didn't release his medical records. You don't want to know things like his cholesterol level, whether he's dealing with any issue that we may not know about, if he's going to be commander-in-chief. And he also said he would release cognitive tests.
Listen to your question.
Should he release that?
The American people, Kristen, the American people don't care about the cholesterol level of Donald Trump. They care about the cost of living and the fact they cannot pay for groceries because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's policies have put them in that situation. The medical records are irrelevant.
We need to know his cholesterol, Alex. That's the most important thing now. We've got a man in office right now who is half dead, but you know what? The cholesterol of Donald Trump, we must know.
Yeah, I think after that first debate with Joe Biden, I think we officially need to never have this conversation ever again. We were told by Joe Biden's doctors that his only afflictions were acid reflux and a stiff gait. He's the literal president. He's still the president, and he performed like that. Clearly has massive cognitive issues. The guy had 2 aneurysm surgeries earlier in his life. We have no transparency. It's all a joke. We are all fed propaganda. So I don't know if it's who's to blame in this, if it's the White House itself. I don't know who in the White House doctor community is out there who's supposed to be releasing this information. I don't know what the rules are. All I know is they weren't playing by them anyway. I got to be honest with you. I got a lot of doctors in my life. I asked what do they think about this. They said they think health issues should be private. And all these people want to do is find something negative to talk about Donald Trump, so they don't keep talking about all these horrible interviews Tim Walz and Kamala Harris keep giving.
You know, honestly, again, they're grasping because they have to make this about Donald Trump. They're trying so hard to make this about Donald Trump. And Tim Walz is actually worse than Kamala is. I think he's even more of an empty vessel because every time he's asked something, he goes, well, Donald Trump, the general said that he can't lead. It's like, well, Donald Trump. That's all Tim Walz knows how to do. They want to make this about Donald Trump. They don't want to make this about them. They don't want to make this about their plans. They don't want to make this about the status quo, which actually Kamala told us last week she wouldn't change anything. So that should be campaign ending as it is. But I just think it's so interesting that now they're trying to play that card that Trump is feeble and he's weak and he's unstable. I mean, you know, not to mention that the man has been shot in the ear. The man almost had a second assassination attempt. He does a rally in Coachella. You've got another man that's arrested trying to potentially kill the president. And they're really out there saying that, yes, we must know his medical records because he is unstable. But I think this will probably be the game. How do you see the next 2 weeks going? And how do you think that this is going to strategize on both sides? What should they do?
Yeah, so I think Trump is going to stay the course, thank God. Get JD doing as many interviews as possible. I've known JD a long time. I would say that He's the closest thing to a friend that I have in politics. And I try as a journalist not to have too many friends, but I've known JD for a while, and he's amazing. And I'm so glad that people got to know the real him, and they're getting to know him some more. So keep getting him out there. I think Trump's rallies are good. I don't think they need to be a million hours long. He does for some reason, but I think, they seem to be good. He's on message. He's talking about the right stuff. He's talking about the economy. He's talking about immigration. He's talking about how the Democrats are now the party of infinite war. They've taken that on. They're out there. Alex Soros praising, Mark Milley, and you've got everyone praising Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. Kamala Harris praising Dick Cheney. All this stuff. It couldn't be better for us. Take them from us. Take the Cheneys from us. By all means, let them go. Let them be Democrats. It's awesome. And the Democrats have a harder thing to do. And it's kind of where I started, Tommy, is that either they put them back in the bunker, and so they don't say anything else stupid, or they roll them out there and they do say stuff stupid, and then you're not going to be talking about all the stupid stuff Trump does. I hate to say it. I'm also glad that Trump decided not to do the last debate now, and that hurts me because I love the debates. They're so fun for me, and Trump traditionally has been pretty good in them. But it is an opportunity for Harris to somehow outperform Trump with the 3-on-1 stacked debates that they do. So that's kind of sad that we're going to miss that. But that was probably smart by Trump. So he's doing all the right stuff. It's really how many people can they convince to vote just based off of their community organizing mechanisms and the abortion issue. And if it's less than 50%, then they're going to have a tough time keeping Trump out of the White House.
There's been a lot of discussion about, even from Barack Obama, about black male voters moving away from Kamala Harris. Now, I know that that's surprising to hear, and it's surprising to hear Democrats kind of acknowledge that, but I don't live in a la-la land. I think Kamala is still going to get a lot of black support because just by virtue of having a D next to her name, I think she just will. But do you think that there is something to this, the erosion of male voters? Do you think it's eroding away from the Democrat Party? Is it eroding away from Kamala because they think she's a moron? What do you think that is? And do you think it's going to be significant enough to make a difference?
Yeah, well, if you look at all the demographics that are out there, Kamala's underperforming in nearly all of them, if not all of them. And this is going to be something I can't wait to get this data from election night. But you're already seeing historic union support for Trump. You're seeing him pick up voters in the Muslim community. The Muslim community hates the Biden-Harris plan, so they're going to be voting a lot for Jill Stein in Michigan, which is going to be wild to see those numbers come in. There's so many demographics that the Democrats have relied on. Catholics voting Democrat. That's one thing that Joe Biden, even though he supports every pro-abortion judge in the world, convinced Catholics he's one of us, he's one of them. And Kamala can't do that stuff. She can't keep those coalitions together that Joe Biden has kept together for 50 years. She's just no good at it. She's not offering anyone anything unless you're just someone who just votes Democrat all the time. So I think Obama sounded a little whiny there, and I would be surprised if it is black men that end up giving the election to Trump. But clearly there's nothing she's saying that's resonant with that group of people. And these ads they're cutting, these cringy ads that you man up and vote for Harris. Jennifer Garner saying it's sexy if you vote for Harris. And this is completely flat messaging. It is inspiring no one. No one buys into any of it. And the Democrats are losing their cool card. And I'll tell you, black men are at the cutting edge of our culture and have been my whole life. Maybe that's part of it. She's so uncool. The Democrats are so uncool. They're preposterous the way they're trying to frame Trump as the bad guy. It just enhances his brand with them.
Trump's always going to be cool. That's the thing. I mean,
Yes.
He can be 95 years old and he's going to be cool. He is a pop culture icon. It doesn't matter if you don't like him or you don't like the Republican Party. He is an icon and he always will be. He's a legend. Last thing I want to ask you about a little bit, because I think, Breitbart, obviously, and what you do and what you guys put out there, I just think this is an interesting phenomenon. Doug Emhoff, right? He does an interview and he doesn't flatly deny those reports about him allegedly slapping an ex-girlfriend, and he doesn't deny the affair with the nanny. And again, last week we got more information from former colleagues at a law firm that he may have been seen as kind of a misogynistic a-hole by his coworkers, and he really hasn't been pressed on it much. But it's really wild to me that he's been able to go under the radar with this. I mean, if he in fact did physically harm an ex-girlfriend, that seems like a bigger story than it's been made out to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, these are really tough to deal with because if you get them wrong in the media, you do run the risk of lawsuits. So they're tough to cover. But I will tell you, the silence is very interesting here. You are not getting complete answers. They're not rolling out Emhoff as much. You're not seeing these profiles about how he's redefining masculinity and how he's a modern day sex symbol. You're not seeing those anymore because people know there's something going on. And I think the knocking up the nanny, I mean, I think that one apparently is, there's a lot of smoke there. Let's put it that way for the lawyers out there. And the accusations of violence, it's very uncomfortable for people. It's very uncomfortable for people. And so they've sent him to the bench because they don't think that they can explain this away fast enough. They don't want to be explaining. So maybe that's the strategy. But he's been completely taken off the field. I don't think he was a huge asset for them anyway, but they were trying to come up with something to mix it up. And now he's completely on the bench and he'll stay there for the rest of the election.
Yeah. I just think the double standard is interesting. The way that they attack Melania and always have, degrade her, demean her, and the way that they're letting him get off without, really pressing him on it. We know the other way around, there would be, no shortage of questions. At least ask the question. I mean, I think if this man is going to sit in the White House and be the very first gentleman, I think people have a right to ask questions and have a right to press him on some of these more salacious stories. And if they're untrue, tell us that they're untrue. But I think to not even really be asked about it when you could potentially be in such an important position, I think that's a little odd to me, and I don't like it. I don't like it, especially on a campaign that's built on female empowerment. I don't like it. It feels icky to me. It feels shady and icky. But go ahead.
But it's interesting because you speak about this, and you have every right to, about female empowerment. And you would think that if you're a young woman and you're trying to find people to look up to, you wouldn't necessarily look up to someone who paired off with this guy. It's just a fact. And she's running this thing like she's going to be the girl boss of the whole country. You can't do that and have this be the guy on your arm. He's got to be a higher quality individual than this if you really want to paint that complete package. And so this is a big failing on their part in terms of campaign branding, because you can't have it both ways. You can't have she's the girl boss who's got it all and she figured out a way to have it all, and have a husband who's just stepping out on people and is allegedly slapping women. I mean, you just can't have both.
Yeah. And then I think on the other side of it, obviously, Donald Trump has no shortage of scandals and stories. We know this.
Sure.
But I do think when you look at it like a J.D. Vance, who is a supportive husband, who actually has a badass wife who can hold her own and is incredibly intelligent. And not only is she incredibly intelligent and has a wonderful career, but she's also a mother and he's a father and he supports her. I mean, that to me, that's the story. If you want female empowerment and you want to talk about a family unit, get yourself a husband like J.D. Vance who lets you shine and he's not emasculated by it. To me, that's the story here. But they're everything that they claim not to be on the left, and they're pathetic and they're embarrassing, and best of luck to them on winning over the men with their cringy ads. But Alex, we always appreciate you. We appreciate Breitbart. Thanks for all that you do. And I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks, hopefully with some good news that we can discuss.
Thanks, Tommy. I always enjoy being on your show and having the full forum, and your conversation is always terrific. We've got some new premium stuff over at Breitbart.com that we just launched, so I would love it if people would check it out. It's called The Fight Club, brand new today as of when we're recording this, so I hope people give us a shot.
The Fight Club?
Yeah.
Wow, that goes just hand in hand with what we were just talking about, but much different, I'm sure, much different. You guys do great work over at Breitbart. Always a great follow. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tommy.
All right, folks, rest assured, my fellow Americans, illegal immigrant gang members are only taking over a handful of apartment complexes. So take one for the team. Democrats need voters. It's time for final thoughts. Just like you have to have a certain amount of privilege to vote based on January 6th or democracy, you also have to have like an exorbitant amount of privilege to brush off illegal immigrant gang members ravaging communities, but not like a lot.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs.
Yeah, don't worry, you silly little American peasants. Illegals are only taking over a handful of apartments in a Denver suburb. And good news, they'll probably only rape and murder a handful of young women in your community. It's only a handful. Take one for the team. Democrats need new voters. I mean, I'm not surprised by much anymore, but the mental gymnastics these liberal so-called journalists have to perform to come up with this stuff is just really impressive. They are the gatekeepers of the Democrat Party, and they will rationalize the carnage created by Democrat politicians to any extent necessary to convince viewers and voters that what they are experiencing firsthand in their own lives is not valid. And that should really piss you off. Like somehow you should just accept that everything around you has gone to hell. And back to my original point about privilege. Do you think any of these people in mainstream media are really and truly affected by all of this? Do you think if Martha Raditz's home was taken over by violent, illegal alien gangs, she'd be singing the same tune? No. But she's so far removed from the struggles of average Americans, she really sees no issue lecturing J.D. Vance on his misinformation spreading because a few apartment takeovers aren't that bad to her because it doesn't really touch her life at all. And you know who else that kind of thing doesn't really touch? Donald Trump. But guess what? He still wants to fix it because he cares about the people in this damn country. And I guess that's the big difference here. Trump doesn't need to do any of this, but he chooses to because he wants this country to be a decent place to live, and he doesn't think his fellow citizens should just take it on the chin. And we shouldn't. And those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow again live at 1 p.m. Eastern on outkick.com. Also catch full episodes of this show on Fox Nation whenever you want. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. And from Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.